Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K Facebook Live video. Hopefully a few of you are popping in here to say hello. I'm just checking to make sure that I am live where I want to be out on my Facebook page, which it looks like I am. So just checking in. All right, so we are good to go. So today I am going to share with you a little card that I made, a quick little birthday card that I made with the Birthday Cheer stamp set bundle, which includes the Birthday Cheer stamp set, obviously, and then the detailed birthday edgelets dies. So this is a nice little set of dies. The cupcake coordinates with the little cupcake in here, and the tag die actually works with a couple of the sentiments on here too. So it's a nice little stamp set and die bundle. So hey Karen, thanks for hopping in. All right, so I'm gonna set that aside for now and set my card aside as well. So hopefully I don't end up with that all full of some sort of inky, gluey, whatever mess. So, all right, first things first. I used a little bit of the How Sweet It Is, Designer Series paper, which is actually from another one of the suites in the Occasions catalog, but I thought that it coordinated really well with the little cupcake images that I'm going to be stamping. And I like the colors. This is actually one of my favorite. Hey Connie, thanks for hopping in. One of my favorite Designer Series papers ever. I love the colors in it. So using a little bit of the multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm going to adhere this to the card front, and it's going to cover the entire thing. So that's why I'm using the liquid glue instead of snail. So it gives me a little bit more room to wiggle things around and make sure that I get it hopefully somewhat straight. And the right side up is always a bonus too. So hold your breath for me while I get this part done. Usually it helps if I kind of tap it down on the bench in front of me so that I make sure that I can get the bottom of it fairly straight. So, all right, I think that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside for now. The next thing that I'm going to do is stamp the sentiment. Hey Roz, thanks for hopping in. So you're in Australia, I think, aren't you? I don't even know what time of the day it is there. So it's noon here in Atlanta. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the sentiment from the Birthday Cheer stamp set in a little bit of gorgeous grape ink. So just going to keep it simple. And I'm going to stamp it kind of, I want it on the lower right side of a die cut that I'm going to do. So I'm going to stamp it a little bit off-centered on the paper that I'm using. Just stamping it on Whisper White cardstock. And I'm going to cut it out with one of the, it's noon here too. Oh, so you guys are 24 hours ahead of us? I didn't realize you were that far. So I thought it was the middle of the night where you guys were. So, all right, so I'm going to use one of the rectangle stitched framelits dies, and I'm going to cut the sentiment out with that. So again, I'm going to pull out the big shot, and there's going to be a bunch of wiggling on the screen, so I apologize. I know that it's not the easiest thing to look at when I'm doing this, but just wanted to show you how to do the card. So part of it's die cutting, which of course y'all know that I love die cutting, so that's my favorite, one of my favorite techniques ever, and I pretty much use it on every single card. So again, one little tip with oh, you're in Florida. Oh, I don't know why I thought you were in Australia. So sorry. Anyway, I'm losing my mind, I swear. I don't know why I thought I really thought you were you lived in Australia. Anyway, like I said, I don't know. But hey, Debbie, thanks for hopping in. Oh, it's from gloomy Ohio. The sun actually finally came out here in Atlanta yesterday, which has been a little strange. You go outside and you're like, oh man, it's bright out here. So anyway, so one quick tip, which I started to say on here, when you're running the rectangle dies through the big shot, run them through at a little bit of an angle. It makes it so much easier to cut, and there's a lot less of a bump to kind of get the cardstock up and over. So definitely do that with your rectangle dies when you're going to do any die cuts with them. All right, so I'm going to set this aside for just a second while we work on putting the rest of the card together. Hey Vicki, thanks for hopping in. All right, so the next thing that I did was I took a little bit of the Granny Apple Green, and it is the 1/2-inch textured weave ribbon that we have here, and took about an 8.5-inch length of that. And because I'm going to actually wrap it around the entire card front, I didn't want the raw edges to show inside, so I actually adhere the raw edges on the outside and then cover it with the sentiment, because you can't tell anyway. So it just looks a lot prettier, I think, when you do it that way around. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of snail kind of over the middle of the card. And then one other little trick that I learned, which I think my friend Sue told me this one, is to use the grid paper to actually line up your ribbon when you're wanting to adhere it and kind of wrap it around and adhere it straight. So use your grid paper to line up your ribbon and then wrap it around and adhere it to your card front, and then you know that you're straight because you're even on both sides, hopefully. So, all right. Hey Sue, thanks for hopping in. So, all right, so we've got the ribbon on. We're going to adhere these two pieces together, the die cut piece with a little bit of gorgeous grape cardstock that I've already went ahead and pre-cut. And all the cut details are going to be on my blog post for tomorrow. So you can take a look at it there and get all the exact measurements of everything. So we're going to adhere the two pieces together with a little bit of snail. And then we're going to adhere to the card front with a couple Stampin' dimensionals. So nice and simple. Couple things I wanted to remind you about while I'm picking dimensional covers off is the Celebration Coordination products are starting on Friday, and those are the new die sets and new punch and a new stamp set that are coming out from Stampin' Up, and they'll be available to purchase starting on Friday, and they coordinate with the current Celebration items, which is a nice little bonus. Hopefully I'm getting this on here straight while I'm talking. So just wanted to remind you about that. So those will be starting on Friday, so definitely keep an eye out for those. All right, I'm going to set this aside while we work on the cupcakes. So for the cupcakes, I actually sort of cheated. We don't have a Melon Mambo Stampin' Blends marker, but the light Lovely lipstick is a very close color if you put a couple of layers on it. So that is what I did. Yes, no fussy cutting, Karen. Ooh, we don't do that here, so I'm not crazy. So use a little bit of the light Lovely lipstick, Stampin' Blends, and put some color on the little base of the cupcake. And then kind of went back in and added a little bit of darkness around the top and the bottom. And I am not a coloring expert by any stretch, so those of you that are can cringe when you see my bad coloring, but that's how I do it. Just try to get a little bit of light, a little bit of dark in there. The next one that I used was the Highland Heather Stampin' Blends, and I actually did the light first and just went over the whole frosting on this cupcake and laid the color on it, which again, it doesn't need to be perfect at this point, just because all you want to do is get the color on first. And then went back in with a little bit of the dark Highland Heather and put in some shadows sort of around the bottom part here. And again, for those of you that are coloring experts, I am not. I just put in a little color here and there, a little dark, a little light, until I think it looks good. And then I call it good. So if you're really good at coloring, I'm sure you've probably got other ways that you can do it, but this is how I do mine, just because I like to keep it simple. So then I just went back in with the light Highland Heather marker and added a little bit of additional color here and there over the cupcake frosting. Hey Shirley, thanks for hopping in. Glad you could join us today. So, all right, then last thing I added on here was the little sprinkles. Did those. This is light pineapple punch, and then came back in with just a touch of the dark pineapple punch to give it a little different color, and that's it for that cupcake. So my coloring always looks perfect. You make me laugh, Karen. It is far from perfect. I am not excellent at coloring, but it's fun to do. I like playing with the blends. So for the second cupcake, I used a little bit of the light Granny Apple Green. My fear is always that I'm going to pick up the dark marker and start coloring away, and then I'm going to look and go, oh wait, I didn't mean to do that. But anyhow, so coming back in with the dark Granny Apple Green marker, putting a little color under the frosting, a little bit around the bottom. And then I'm going to come back with the light and sort of blend the two together here a little bit. Again, just to add a little bit of light and a little bit of dark. All right, then I used Pineapple Punch for the frosting on this cupcake. So I'm, again, just taking the light Pineapple Punch, putting a layer of color on. The one nice little thing, which I'm not sure how well you can see it on the screen, but I did have a tiny little bit of the Granny Apple Green that sort of snuck up and got into the part where the frosting was. But because these are alcohol-based markers, I just blended it away with the marker, and you can't even see the little goober that I made. So that's part of why I like these, is that they're very forgiving. And like I said, I'm not excellent at coloring, but they're fun to use and fun to see what you can get for different colors and different blends and whatever. And I actually even do a little bit of mixing sometimes between different colors completely, like the Bermuda Bay and the Pool Party, and I've mixed a couple of the reds and the blues together. And so anyway, I just like to play with them. All right, came back in with the light Highland Heather and added the sprinkles in here. And then going to come back and do a couple little, just a little bit of the dark to add a little bit of extra color. And again, I don't know, I'll try to hold it up, but you can maybe see that I've got a little goober here where I went out of the lines with the Highland Heather, and I'll just come back in with my pineapple punch marker, add a little bit of extra color, blend it away, ta-da, done. So that's all there is to it. So they're really simple to use, and that's why I like them. So they're sort of idiot proof for people like me who are not excellent at coloring. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is cut these out using the Big Shot and the detailed birthday thinlets or edgeless dies. So I'm just using a little cupcake die here. Karen says she loves her blends. Yay, I'm glad. I know you were kind of a watercolor girl at first and weren't so excited about the blends, but I'm glad that we've changed your mind because they're awesome. And they make coloring super easy for everybody. All right, so cupcake number 1 is all cut out. I'm going to do cupcake number 2 here as well. And I'm just using the magnetic platform with my Big Shot and my chewed up Big Shot plates. So they get used a ton, so get lots and lots of cuts in them before I end up tossing them. I usually wait until I break mine in two and then finally get rid of them. The well-worn ones work the best, I think. All right, so let's get back to the card and get adhering things together. So the first little cupcake I actually stuck on with a little bit of snail and just sort of angled it up here above the sentiment. And then the second little cupcake, I used Stampin' Dimensionals and stuck a couple of those on the back and adhered it right over the top of the other one. Most definitely they are well-loved Big Shot plates, not, you know, well-worn too, but that's okay. Better that than not being used at all. So, all right, the next thing I added to the card front was one of the glitter enamel dots, and I used the Coastal Cabana just because that color is in the Designer Series paper, but I hadn't used it on the card front at all. So pulled a little bit of that color in as well. So our card front is all done. And that's all there is to it. It was super simple. I mean, the Designer Series paper really does most of the work on this. I did a little bit of coloring in my usual coloring way to get the card front done, but really super simple. So the inside I went ahead and pre-stamped and pre-colored so that you wouldn't have to sit and watch me do it again. But again, this sentiment is stamped in Melon Mambo ink, and it is from the Birthday Cheer stamp set. And then I added the little cupcake in Tuxedo Black Memento ink, which I think I forgot to say on the first ones. That yes, I actually had pre-stamped them in Tuxedo Black Memento ink so that I could color them with the blends. So I apologize if I forgot to say that. So got that stamped here, and I colored it with a pineapple punch and the light lovely lipstick and granny apple green Stampin' blends. So hey, Suzanne, thanks for hopping in. I am glad that you were able to join us today and glad that you were following along too. So the last thing I have left to do is just adhere this to the inside of the card base and using a little bit of snail to do that. Hopefully I'll get it fairly even in here. All right, and that's it. Just grab my bone folder and do a little bit of a nice crease on the card front, and that is it for the card. So super simple. Just did a little bit of coloring, a little bit of die cutting, and it is simple. Very Vicky, see, it's super easy. You just need to come start playing with the blends, and it gets a lot easier. Again, I'm not a coloring expert, but I like to do it, and it's a lot of fun. So, hey, Linda, thanks for hopping in too. Glad that you like the card. That's all that I've got for you today. So that's it for cards. Again, don't forget on Friday, March 1st, we're starting with the celebration coordination, and I'll go ahead and show you those real quickly. Those are dies and a new punch and a stamp set that coordinate with the current celebration items. So this is the new stamp set, and it's called More Than Words, and it'll be available for sale on Friday. And then we've got the 4 die sets that coordinate with the current celebration stamp sets, and a new punch called the Story Label Punch. And again, these will all be available for sale starting on Friday. And the bonus is that those do count towards your celebration sales totals. So when you're putting your merchandise in your cart, they'll count just like any other Stampin' Up! Item towards earning your free celebration items. So thanks again for hopping in with me today. Thanks so much for listening to me ramble and carry on. Hopefully you enjoyed the cards, and I will plan to see you all next week, Tuesday.